Okay, so we're now on to the real kind of guts of your immune system. So this is the adaptive immune system. This is our third and final line of defense. Now there are two branches to this. So I'm going to start off with one branch, which is the cell-mediated response, and then we'll go down another branch, which is the humoral response, and which one works in which scenario. So we're going to start looking at this cell-mediated response, and this is all about cells. What is written in the title there, says it's cell-mediated immunity. Now my pen isn't going to work, okay, but we've got cell there. Okay, so that is our big key here. Now this is when your cells, and I don't know if you're really reading me here, it's when your cells have been invaded, and it's sometimes your immune system will be alerted to a cell that is infected currently. So it is not antigens that are floating around in our body fluids. That is B for body, yeah, bodily fluids, C for cell. Yeah, so this is cell-mediated immunity, it is infected cells. I'm not sure if you got that. Okay, so this is our first introduction to this branch, okay, this cell-mediated immunity. The cell-mediated immunity is all to do with T cells. So we should be on page, sorry guys, we should be on page 13 in your booklets. So we're going to talk about, down the bottom, specific mode 1, and we've filled in those, and let's have a look at these T cells. So this guy here is an antigen presenting cell, so that's a phagocyte. He's part of the second line. So he could be a macrophage. He could be a dendritic cell. Or he could be a neutrophil. Okay, but most likely it's going to be one of the first two. Okay, so it's going to be one of these cells here. Now these ones here are from the second line, so they are non-specific. Now what happens is we've talked about these cells being APCs, or antigen presenting cells. So this is our APC, and it presents an antigen, and this is where our specific immunity comes into play. This here is a T helper cell. Okay, its whole point, and this is the starting point for both this branch of the specific immune system and the next one. The whole point of the T helper cell is to help bridge the gap between the non-specific APC from your innate immune system and your response that you're going to get from your specific immune system. So you can see here that the T helper cell has a receptor that fits that particular antigen. So once again, we have another complementary shape. Now, when that happens, it becomes activated. So if we're going to become activated, what it can do is now it can clone itself, it can redivide, so on and so forth. So we're not going to focus on the stimulating the B cells to divide, because that's going to come back there, but it can do a number of things. It can produce T memory cells. It can produce TC cells, which are called cytotoxic T cells, and I'm going to come back. Cytotoxic T cell. Or it can stimulate phagocytosis, but then pretty much everything stimulates phagocytosis. So the main one that we're going to focus on for this, the main one that you need to understand, is this one down here, the stimulation of the TC cell. So the APC comes along, binds to the T helper cell, and it activates cytotoxic T cells. So how does that work? You can see down the bottom here, we've got a killer T cell. Sometimes they call them killer T cells, sometimes they call them cytotoxic T cells. It means the same thing. Now they don't kill by phagocytosis, because we've got phagocytes that do that. So what these guys do is they make a protein that pokes holes in the cell surface membrane. Why is that bad? Because what that means is now our cell becomes permeable to other substances and it dies, it leaks out. This is very, very effective against virally infected cells, because viruses, how do they reproduce? They need cells. Okay, so the big thing here, I know I've written it there, but I'm going to write it again. They need cells. Here is another one. There's a lot more detail in here than what you need to know. But here is the target cell. It recognizes that antigen. And the cytotoxic T cell starts to release these proteins, poking holes in the infected cell, and it ends up dying. So when we write this down, cytotoxic T cell, this is all you need to know. So it produces a protein that makes holes, and the cell becomes permeable and dies. And that's the main takeaway from this, how they're going to kill the cells. Here's another picture. Here's a killer T cell. Here's your target cell. So this is the one that's got the virus. These are the perforin, or those proteins that are going to create holes. You end up with dead infected cell. Here's another one showing two cytotoxic T cells attacking a cancer cell. So they kind of come up really close and release these proteins, because you don't want to just release these proteins that are going to poke holes in cells everywhere, and then get them like that. So I'm going to go through each one of these statements. I would suggest that you pause, you think about it, you go, is it true or is it a false? And then you listen to the answer. So if it's false, though, I want you to try and rewrite it to make it true. So, do T cells can kill infected cells by phagocytosis? So you can pause. Then we come back. I would say no, they don't do this. They kill infected cells by poking holes. Yeah? The other thing I might want to add is a little C there to make them a cytotoxic T cell. T cells make holes in the cell surface membrane. Pause. Back. Yay, that's good, but I am going to add a C there as well. T cells remove the virus from a cell without destroying it. Pause. And you come back. Again, I'm going to go the TC cells. Do they remove the virus? No, they can remove the virus from the cell, but it's by destroying it. All right, so here's just a little bit of an application question just to finish us off about bird flu. So bird flu was the SARS virus that they talk about on the news these days. They talk about this old virus that was one of the last pandemics. So bird flu is about, or the avian flu is caused from a strain of the influenza virus. Although it is adapted primarily to infect birds, the H5N1, which is just the name, strain of the virus can infect other species, including humans. Avian flu affects the lungs and can cause the immune system to go into overdrive. This results in a massive overproduction of T cells. This is the same this is one of the symptoms of the coronavirus as well. So this is what's happening, is you get this overproduction of T cells. So from your knowledge of cell-mediated immunity in lung structure, suggests why humans infected with the H5N1 virus may sometimes die from suffocation. And why is the spread of bird flu across the world likely to be very rapid? So give it a pause, think about them, and then we'll come back. All right, so hopefully you've had some time to think about it. And from your knowledge of cell-mediated immunity and lung structure, now we don't really need to know much about lung structure, but let's think about it. If you get an overproduction of T cells, that means you're going to get a lot of, what is that going to cause? That's going to cause a lot of cell death. Okay, if you get a lot of cell death, then you might get less alveoli, surface area. If you get less surface area, therefore you get less O2 available, or the rate decreases. And if that happens, then you're likely to kind of suffer from suffocation, potentially. And the second question we had here is, why is it likely to be very rapid? What do we know about these guys? They are birds. What do birds do? They fly. They fly, first off. They fly far and long distances. If they do that, it makes sense. Yeah, they can transfer this virus very easily across the world. Now you can't see what I've written because it's decided to have paused, so I'm just going to bring it back. Here we go. So you can see there are my answers talking about those. And that is the end of cell-mediated immunity.